Speaker. Thank you.
I call the Liberal Democrat spokesperson Max Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A serious allegation was recently made that Liberal Democrats spend too much time in our communities fixing church roofs and we're not on Twitter. Well, last night I logged back on, and let me tell you, Twitter was absolutely brilliant. The quality and depth of political debate really was something to behold. Liberals and authoritarians, nationalists and internationalists, people from the economic right, left and centre were engaging in well-informed, expansive and thoughtful debate about the most pressing issues of the day. I jest, of course, it was a total waste of time for everybody involved, including me. Though Elon Musk has made it useful for some people, I refer to those on the hard right of politics who are profiting from Twitter by sowing the seeds of division, not just profiting politically, but also lining their pockets with the money of the social media barons. And I have already told the member I'm about to reference that I'm referencing him today, because his register of members' interests is revealing. The leader of Reform has declared more than £10,000 in earnings from one particular source since he was elected. The address of the payer is in Market Square, and I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking it's the charming covered market in Clacton. But no, that closed in 2022. It's Elon Musk's X, based in Market Square in San Francisco, California. The member for Clacton has also declared more than £14,000 in earnings from Google, £98,000 from Cameo, based in Chicago, more than £2,700 from Meta in California. Now, one wonders where he finds all the time. As a 2024 intake MP, I encounter my colleagues who basically don't have time to go to the loo. But on a more philosophical note, for one who claims to be a patriot, he's certainly taking a lot of money from international sources, isn't he? That should give us all pause for thought when we consider the impact of digital platforms on democracy. We might conclude, at the very least, that it distracts some MPs from doing their actual job. And I don't mean the action of doom scrolling. I mean, of course, the distraction of the grift. But what of the broader threats presented by social media platforms? Well, we've spoken on many occasions recently about the issues that young men are facing and the impact on democracy. Now, it is my belief that at its heart those issues are the symptoms of many problems, including the tone of debate about the roles and responsibilities of boys as they become men, a lack of secure routes to employment and ludicrously high housing and rental prices. If you're stuck in your childhood bedroom looking for reasons why your life is rubbish, then the digital world has no shortage of scapegoats. Women, minorities, LGBT+ people, immigrants, foreigners, refugees, disabled people, the weak, single-parent families, the list goes on. And there's no shortage of snake oil salesmen out there who can tell you who you should blame and what you can do about it. Andrew Tate tells us it's the fault of women. And for any young men at home, I can tell you that nobody outside of the manosphere wants to see pictures of bald men in their middle age with their tops off. I know from personal experience. My social media followers, and more importantly, my friends, left me in no doubt about what a plonker I looked after a photo I posted of me at Cheltenham Lido. Those who idolise Tate would do well to heed this advice. Jordan Peterson, another big thinker on the right, gives brilliant advice to young men. He tells them they must make themselves physically strong so they can find a mate and they can get rich and powerful, or they'll end up dying poor and alone with their melted brains like crustaceans defeated after a violent fight in the depths of the ocean. I'm pretty sure that's not true. The lads shouldn't worry about it, but so many are, thanks to these sellers of snake oil online. Thanks to President Trump and those who argue for a bizarre form of freedom of speech, not for everyone, the truth is now a contested concept, and it's intertwined with fear and hatred, which are both a threat to our democracy. And we all know where the truth goes to die, don't we? Well, the answer is whichever social media platform you like. You just start posting outlandish stuff, you keep going, you double down, you find a mad and hateful narrative. You tell everyone it's free speech, and before you know it, you might be lucky enough to become a successful online grifter with your top off. Perhaps you'd be an MP, or maybe even the President of America. Madam Deputy Speaker, 2 days ago it was April Fool's Day. I hate April Fool's Day. You know why? Because the world is now so ludicrous, you don't know what's a joke and what isn't. And even worse, what you post as a joke might end up being shared by so many people so many times that it's somebody else's truth eventually. In the worst case, that becomes part of a hate-fueled conspiracy theory. I won't mention it, you all know what it is. And there are many increasingly popular conspiracy theories online that have nothing to do with hatred at all, but they're plainly bizarre. I will not name them here for the sake of my inbox and the inboxes of all of you, but every single one of those outlandish claims is a threat to our democracy. And those views are going round the world quicker and quicker, thanks to social media. But what should we in this place be doing about it? Well, while digital and social media platforms can be good for democracy, as others have said, they're inherently vulnerable to misinformation and abuse. They reduce the quality of public debate. Look no further than the riots following the tragedy of the Southport attacks. That tragedy for those individuals, those little girls and their families, was compounded for so many by what happened in the following days because people were whipped up into a frenzy by false rumours leading to more violence. Musk's X, Zuckerberg's Meta and other social media companies facilitate that spreading of misinformation. And they have made it entirely clear to all of us that they do not care. Let's face it also, platforms like TikTok and Snapchat are making our children sad and depressed. They're putting a check on the development of the adults of the future. They absolutely cannot be trusted. Back to Musk. He used his purchase of Twitter to further leverage his influence over the world's largest democracy. He changed the rules to boost his own posts and push aside those who he disagrees with. Freedom of speech, of course, but more free for others. And from his own platform, the world's richest man has made several direct interruptions of our democracy. Last summer, he sought to further incite disorder, posting that in the UK, civil war is inevitable. He also called for America to liberate the people of Britain and overthrow the UK government, and has suggested he might bankroll the Reform Party. Now, while I have some sympathy with ministers dealing with Trump, do they really think it's wise to be so gentle with him when his right-hand man Musk has called for them to be forcibly ejected from office? I realise that ministers are limited in what they can say, but I'm pretty sure I know what they think. And regardless of diplomatic norms, it is plainly absurd. Worse than that, it makes our once strong nation look weak. What should we do? Social media companies themselves must take a larger role in tackling misinformation. It's clear they're not going to do it without government intervention. They need to get on with it. Liberal Democrats believe that stricter regulations must be introduced to ensure they are properly challenged on the spread of misinformation. We must stand up to them. We must intervene to protect our democracy. As a Liberal, I believe that unchecked power and wealth are inherently dangerous. As a Liberal, I often take my whip from J.S. Mill, who warned the idea that truth always triumphs over persecution is one of those pleasant falsehoods which most experience refutes. We must heed that warning in this debate.
For the opposition, Dr. Ben Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'll start by thanking the Backbench Business Committee and the member for Lagan Valley for bringing forward this very important debate today. Digital platforms can both enhance and undermine democracy. Social media can increase awareness of elections and candidates, encouraging participation and voter turnout, but it can also lead to abuse of democratically elected MPs, councillors, politicians. Even more worrying is the threat of electoral interference from malign international actors. And I'm grateful to all members from all parties who took part in what I think was an incredibly thoughtful and interesting debate on such an important issue. For time reasons, I can't reflect back everyone's speech, but I do want to just pay particular heed to three members who've spoken. The first being the member for Lagan Valley, and I'd like to start off thanking her for her incredibly powerful speech. I'm sorry about the abuse and the attacks and the threats that she's experienced. Any attack or abuse to an MP is an attack on our democracy. And we have brilliant representatives in this place. I'm proud to be a Member of Parliament on this, the greatest Parliament in the world. And it's a duty on us to stand up for our fellow colleagues, for members across the House, and for elected representatives at all levels. And on that note, I'd particularly also like to thank her for mentioning Jo Cox and David Amos. I was elected after Jo Cox was murdered, but I did get meet David Amos before he was murdered, and I still have a letter that he sent me when I was elected as a new MP, and I know also Jo Cox is very much missed by all of us. And sadly, what happened to them it clearly makes, if the point needed driving home, just the importance of making sure that we deal with these problems and we get this right. I'm going to pick a bit later in my speech one of the points that she raised regarding issues around disinformation and misinformation, and also with regards to digital watermarking. I do think she also raised some very important points regarding how social media are operating, and I've often thought that we need to think about anonymity and privacy separately in terms of people using the platform and the content going out on it. I'd also like to pay a tribute to the member for Oxford East, who used the speech as well to give in part some of the comments regarding her resignation. Principles aren't principles unless you act on them. And I really hope that she has the opportunity to serve His Majesty's government at some point again in the future. And I'd like to mention, and again, I'm sorry, there's so many brilliant speeches, I'd like to reference everybody, but due to time, some of the comments from the member for East Kilbride and Strathaven that really jumped out at me, particularly the quotes that she read out in this chamber, those vile, vile comments. And I'd be grateful if the Minister could also, in terms of her winding up, just comment on that, and perhaps what reassurance she can give the House that these are being dealt with appropriately by the digital online platforms. Madam Deputy Speaker, protecting the integrity of our elections and stopping the influence of malign foreign actors is a critical role for government. It's the government's responsibility to work closely with the Electoral Commission and others to protect the integrity, security and effectiveness of UK referendums and elections. The Electoral Commission has a wide range of investigatory and civil sanctioning powers, and the government is also able to refer more serious matters to the Police or National Crime Agency. As outlined in the previous government's response to the Intelligence and Security Committee's report on Russia, the UK's adversaries adapt a whole-of-state approach to hybrid and malign activity and tackling it, and therefore it requires a cross-government and cross-society response. To respond effectively, it is necessary for the government to draw on skills, resources and remits of different departments, agencies and non-government organisations. Considering the current geopolitical landscape, it's essential that the government keeps all aspects of this approach protecting democracy under review so that it can quickly adapt to any new threats that emerges. Now, this is not an issue facing the UK alone, but democracies across the Western world. Political parties are successfully harnessing the impact of social media to reach cohorts of voters that are normally uninterested or disillusioned. This is a good thing, but other countries are facing interference from other states, Russia and China. So how should governments respond? The previous government was resolute in defending our country from hostile state activity, and the last government brought forward the Elections Act 2022, which restricts third-party campaigning to UK-based groups and eligible overseas electors, so that only those with legitimate interests in UK elections can campaign at UK elections. The Election Act also contains new measures requiring digital imprints on online campaign material and greater transparency in political funding. The previous government also passed the world-leading Online Safety Act, and I know many members have made reference to the Online Safety Act. Its provisions have only recently come into force in terms of regulating this area, and I hope the government will continue to very actively monitor what Ofcom is doing to make sure that it's working appropriately. There are also threats from artificial intelligence, disinformation, and in particular the ability of AI to create realistic videos, images, impersonating trusted public figures, including political and religious leaders. The risks of this are clear to all to see. In the data bill at committee stage, we tabled an amendment which would set up a technological standard of digital watermarks. In part, this is about ensuring that we can help solve some of the issues around AI and copyright, but also it's about ascribing authenticity to what people are putting out on social media. And I suspect many colleagues across the House, as like me, would like to have the ability to put a digital watermark on material they put out so that people can be sure content that they're creating is from the person who purports to be creating it. The government voted this amendment down, but I hope ministers will work with us to support it going forward. Madam Deputy Speaker, to finish, we must ensure that regulations are effective and up to date with the latest technology. We've got to ensure that the public are made aware of the risks of AI-generated content, deliberate disinformation, and tackle foreign interference in our elections. Digital platforms can also enhance democracy, and it's important that we don't lose sight of that. And like it or not, traditional media is no longer the primary news source for many, using things like Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, all being part of this ecosystem. if we as politicians want better participation in democracy, and I believe all of us, of course, do, we cannot vacate social media, although I'm very jealous of the people who don't use it on it in many ways, or vacate the online space, but ensure that it works for all of us.
Yeah.
Call Minister for Real Clark.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to begin by thanking the member for Lagan Valley for securing this debate. I'd like to join her, the Honourable Member, in honouring the memory of our dear colleagues, Sir David Ames and Joe Cox. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to the Honourable Member and all the other speakers for the incredibly powerful and insightful contributions to today's debate. The government shares the members' concerns for the impact that online harassment, intimidation, abuse, mis and disinformation has on our democracy. And existing and emerging technologies have led to changes in the information environment and will continue to shape our future. But it is and always will be an absolute priority for the UK government to protect our democracy, and we remain well prepared to do so with robust systems in place. I was really grateful to the Honourable Member for Lagan Valley for sharing her experiences. The House should absolutely hear the abuse that she and the hate she has faced online, and there is no place for that. And I thank her for sharing that. The government is committed to combating violence against women and girls, and the Online Safety Act requires Ofcom to develop and enforce guidance for tech companies, and this guidance aims to ensure that platforms implement measures to reduce harm to women and girls online. The Act imposes legal responsibility on online platforms, including social media platforms, gaming platforms, dating apps and search engines, to protect users from from illegal content and material harmful to children, and addressing issues that disproportionately affect women and girls. And these measures reflect government's commitment to creating safer online environments, acknowledging the unique challenge faced by women and girls in the digital space. And while in putting this guidance together, Ofcom consulted with Domestic Abuse Commissioner, the Victims Commissioner and experts in the field. And I guess the effectiveness of these measures depends on its robust implementation and enforcement that we will monitor closely. As she knows, the online safety only started being implemented in spring this year. The government will keep the Online Safety Act under review, and whilst we know it's a landmark bit of act, that we know it's not perfect, so we will continue to keep it under review, and we will not shy away from strengthening it where it is required. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Online Safety Act, as I said, is already being implemented and will introduce protections to protect people from illegal content, for example, child sexual abuse, terrorist material, as well as protecting children from harmful material. I just wanted to make it clear to the House and all members who raised it, it is not up for negotiation. And the Honourable Member also raised the issue of banning phones for smartphones for under 16. The government will consider all options in pursuit of children's online safety. However, it is important that the government takes evidence-based action in recognition of the need to balance safety with allowing children to use technology positively. And I'm sure she's also aware that November last year, the department announced a study on methods and data to understand the impact of smartphones smartphones and social media on children. And the study began December last year and will run for 6 months until May 2025. And I'm sure we will report to the